Hey everybody, it's Mike here at Game from Scratch, and welcome back to the ongoing 5 great game dev websites series. Today we are on volume 6. That means we have showcased 30 great websites. And the entire idea behind this entire series is basically, if it's cool, game dev related, and a website, I share it here. And on that topic, if you have one that I haven't covered already, please do let me know, and I will include it in the series. Coincidentally, I think I'm going to bundle all of these together so all of the links are in one place. I'll toss that link down below, as well as the playlist for all of the sites we've covered. Now, it's actually getting harder and harder for me to track if I've already featured a website, so I guess I should put them all together in one place. So do look for that down below. So the whole idea here is any website that is of interest to game developers, and that's pretty broad, right? So that means artists, designers, programmers, audio technicians, you name it. If it's a facet of game development, it could potentially be featured on this series. And of course, you make my job a hell of a lot easier if you have great recommendations. So if you have a site to recommend, please do let me know in the comments down below, and I will consider it for volume 7. All right, without further ado, which I guess is a bit of a catchphrase of mine, let's jump right in. Now, the first one we're going to look at right now is Shader Playground. This one is quite cool. Right now, there are more and more shader compilers out there. There's a staggering number of them, actually. Here we go. We've got one of them hooked up, and you see there are multiple other options. And basically, what you can do is come in and enter some code on the left here, either GLSL, SLSL, or slang. And so you write your HLSL starting code or your GLSL starting code. I'll go back to HLSL for this example. Over here, you pick your compiler, basically what you want to turn it into. So for example, I'm going to turn HLSL into GLSL, like so. And you see, boom, on the right-hand side, that is your end result. You can also have it compiled down if it makes sense. So if I go back to DXCF, I have the option of DXIL, or DirectX Intermediate Language, or SPIRV, or SPIRV. I don't forget how it's pronounced. So basically the binary language format for the Vulkan programming language. So if you're looking at basically exploring the different shader compiler options out there, or you just want a quick and dirty way to convert from one language to the next, this is an excellent tool. Basically, again, you could just come in here, pick your output, and then see the results. So if you are working on creating a shader in one language, but you need to port to another environment and the tool you're in doesn't do it automatically, Shader Playground is definitely a place to go. Now, again, I will throw the links down below when I get to them. So everything that we've done here will be linked down below. Also notice that there is actually a GitHub page available. So you'll see right here, it is open source. And it shows you the various different compilers and analyzers that it hooks up to. So this is basically piggybacking on other existing technologies, but still a very cool project nonetheless. So if you're looking at shaders going from one language to the next, Shader Playground is definitely something to check out. Next up, we have Texture Haven. This was released somewhat recently, and I almost did a video on it of its own accord because this one is cool. This is a giant free repository of textures. Basically, everything here is under CC0 license, can be downloaded instantly, giving you complete freedom. They are patron supporter, I believe this is. Yeah, patron supporter. And it's really high quality texture. So going in here, you can see some of the textures we're dealing with. It's not a huge collection of them yet, but they'll be adding more and more over time. But if you are looking for high quality textures, Texture Haven is definitely one to check out. Broke down into categories. So say you need a brick texture, and there you go. And again, when you pick them, you can download all of the maps, the ambient occlusion map, the bump map, the diffuse map, the placement map, the normal map, the roughness map, or the specular map individually. So you can use all those together, and if you've got a PBR workflow going already, this is an excellent resource for texture maps. They also have HDRIs, like the different site. I guess I should include this because technically it is a different thing. But if you're doing panorama, skyboxes, etc., do check out their sister site. Next up, we have Proc Jam art packs. Now this one's kind of interesting. They can annually create a bunch of procedural generated game ready assets. I believe they're CC0 0 as well. Yeah, Creative Commons as well, procedurally created. So basically pick the pack that you're interested in, like so. And then you can download the models, or you can download the asset pack directly into Unity. Now, obviously, your art style is very much defined here. So if that style does nothing for you, you're not going to appreciate the packs. But if you are into this the style that they're looking at the particular time, this might be a great resource for pretty much having everything you need to create or prototype a certain kind of game. They've also got some tutorial. In theory, they have some tutorials. This should link to some tutorials. Maybe by the time you click this, it will be working again. Okay, next up, we have Glitch. Now, this is another one. This one's been around forever, so you may already know about it. But if you don't, you're going to enjoy this one. Basically, Glitch is a game that died, and they released all of the assets into the public domain. Now, Glitch was being made using Flash, so a lot of it is very much Flash-oriented. But you can see here, Glitch is a collection of sprite sheets, so flat images, 372 megabytes worth, items that are either in FLA or SWF, both Flash formats. Again, player houses, overlays, avatars, and wardrobes. And you can see here, this is the style or art style of the game that was being created. And it's some pretty nice stuff. It's pretty looking art. Now, what you're going to probably have to do, if you're interested in getting some of this stuff individually, you'll probably want to get an FLA decompiler unless you're actually working in Flash still. But this is the one I think most people will probably be interested in. There's just this huge collection of images used to make the game that includes backgrounds, animated sprites, foreground sprites, etc. And there's all these various different repositories that I linked off to that also include source code, overlays, etc. So again, it's shut down, it's dead. It's always sad to see a game die, but it is pretty cool when they release their stuff into the public domain like these guys did. And for the final site, I'm actually plugging one of my own sites, and that is the recently launched DevGame. Now, if you've been watching the channel at all as of late, you've probably seen DevGame a couple of times. This is where I'm hosting my Armory tutorial series. And in fact, this is where I'm hosting all of my text tutorial series going forward. And why, you might ask, am I doing this as opposed to just Game from Scratch? Well, Game from Scratch is written on a blogging engine, one that's very obsolete at this point in time. And I'm going to keep Game from Scratch going indefinitely. It's my baby. It spawned all this. It spawned the name of this channel. But over time, as a lot of people have pointed out, the name has been a little bit less accurate. Like when it was spawned, game engines weren't as prolific as they are. People did a lot more things using libraries and from scratch, and it made a whole lot of sense. And at the same time, things have changed. You now need to be SSL compatible. You need to be a certain format for Google to find you or to like your site. Mobile is now more important than it's ever been before, etc. And I tried updating and updating, but eventually I just found for the content that is not going to change, things that are not blog related, so basically long form tutorials, I just decided to spin off a new site. And right now there is an Armory tutorial. There's not a whole lot here yet, but you will find if you go into tutorials, we have one series up right now for the Armory game engine. And there are, as you saw here on the channel, a number of videos about it. But there's going to be another series coming online soon. So what I'm basically going to do is just basically create long tutorial series here in text form, but also sometimes they'll have video components, and it may not be one-to-one. A lot of times on Game from Scratch, I did a video for each part of the tutorial, and sometimes that doesn't make any sense because sometimes you could cover something in like 2 minutes. Sometimes it'll take like a half an hour. And now what I'll probably just do is, if it makes sense for there to be one video for the entire series, I'll make one video for the entire series. If it makes sense for there to be more, there will be more. Now, if you're already following Game from Scratch, don't worry. I'm getting in the habit of linking off content I'm doing elsewhere from Game from Scratch. And Game from Scratch is still going to have shorter tutorials. It's also going to have game dev news and related kind of content. But what I'm going to do here basically is stuff with a permanent home, stuff that, you know, it's almost like mini book format is going to exist on DevGame. And of course, I am listening to suggestions on it. Again, as I mentioned, I have 1 or 2 tutorial series in mind that will start up on here. And that is pretty much 100% what DevGame is going to be. It's going to be straight out tutorial site, like you see here, step by step on a particular game engine. It's going to be game engine focused. I'm going to cover a plethora of games, just pretty much everything you can think of. It will eventually be here. You will see you'll have handy navigation, so you could do things like table of contents to navigate between every post. Whereas before it was Game from Scratch, it was chronologically based, and for a lot of things that just didn't make sense. So the cool thing with DevGame is instead of spinning things out one at a time, I'm generally just doing a whole bunch and then boom, throwing them up there. But I will announce it on Game from Scratch if you're interested. So yeah, kind of co-opting it for the, I hope this is a great game dev website, or at least it will be. But yeah, I'm throwing one of my own in here as well. But hopefully you found that collection useful. And once again, if you have any suggestions for sites, or in this particular case for tutorials you want to see, do let me know in the contents down below, and I will do the best that I can. And again, I'm going to start compiling all these together into a single list. I hope that I'll host on Game from Scratch. That basically will will have all of the videos we've done here and all of the suggestions in each video in a table format. So if you want to go through the previous videos, you don't want to have to go through each one manually to go see the comments for what all the videos were. They will all be in one place, and I will link that down below, and I will link that on every single episode that I've done so far, so that you've got quick access to all of the cool things we've covered so far. And that way I can use it in the future so that I don't start doing duplicates, because like I said, that's starting to get a little tricky to track. All right, hope you found that useful, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.